Okay, I think we're recording. Hello, everybody. I'm doing my presentation on glass frogs, more explicitly the Mindo glass frog. I forget its scientific name, but I've always loved glass frogs ever since I learned about them in herpetology class last year. But I always thought they were cool. Cool how they're translucent on their underbelly. So I thought it'd be a perfect animal to pick for this ConBio presentation. So let's start right into that. Okay, um, okay, that works. Glass frog characteristics. Just jump into a little bit about some of the broader characteristics of glass frogs. Most of the glass frogs are native to, actually, all of them are native to Central and South America. They are primarily lime green in color. Maybe get a little bit darker in there, but depending on the species, and all of them have a transparent underside. The amount of transparency depends on the species of the frog. Um, Overall, most of them have the very translucent underbelly where you can see all their guts and stuff. They have very problematic taxonomy. I'll talk about it later, where just recently, let's say recently, in 2009, they've had a taxonomic revision almost where they have had tons of more genera, more genetic samples have been gathered and stuff like that. So just very problematic taxonomy. Adults range from 20 to 30 millimeters in length. So pretty small frogs. They're very lanky. They got skinny arms, skinny legs. Most of them display some sort of pattern of spots on their back. You see this guy, he has a lot of spots, very colorful guy. And usually these spots match the yolk of their eggs or the embryo of their eggs, just say. And these guys are very they're nocturnal, so they only come out at night, and they usually stay in the trees, preferring to live in the trees that are overhanging or along mountain streams. They live in probably higher elevation mountain rainforests. So I'm going to mention this a lot, and it's the humeral spine. Um, I just wanted to touch into what exactly the humeral spine is. I barely even know, but on their front arms or their legs, it's a little protrusion, little spine connected to their bone there that you can obviously see with species that have this humeral spine, and this is a very defining characteristic of some of these genera that I'm going to talk about, where back in the day, they were kind of like if it had a humeral spine, it was with this family. If it was found in this area and I had a humeral spine, it was with this, I should say family, with this genera. Um, if it didn't, it was probably with this one. Let's see. And this is the species that I am talking about in this project or this presentation, the Mindo glass frog. I'm going to butcher this, and it's Nympharegus balanotus. Yeah, pretty good. And these guys are listed as endangered on the IUCN. And these guys actually do have a humeral spine. You can see down in their arm right there as a little protrusion hanging out there. It looks like they got a nice workout in, nice bicep workout in. So they do have this humeral spine. They are in the genus Nympharegus. I'm sure I'll talk about that later. They have yellow and black spots. So they have two yellow spots by their eyes with two black spots on their back, as you can see there in the picture, and then a bunch of little black spots here and there. These guys are lime green. They're lime green to a darker green, and they have a rusty reddish brown spot on their back. And obviously, you can see the sides are white with a translucent underbelly, like most glass frogs. And these guys deposit their eggs on leaves, mosses, rocks, branches, just like any other given glass frog. And depending on the species, they will lay their eggs on the top or bottom of the leaf. I think these guys are known to lay their eggs on the bottom of their leaves. So a little bit into the taxonomy. I told you they had a troubled history, troubled taxonomic history. So the class amphibia, they're amphibians. The order Anura, because they're frogs. Their super family is uh Hyloidea, and their family is Centrolenidae, which includes all of the glass frogs. And then getting into the genera, there's let's say four historic or the largest genera, and that's Centroline, um, Cotronella, Hylanobacterium. I did pretty well, and Niphargus, which includes the Mindo glass frog. So these are the largest genera, and most historic until recently, um, with the new genetic sampling and stuff, the testing, analyses. They kind of were able to make, I think they have 12 genera right now. So talk a little bit about the genus Centraline, known as the giant glass frog. So these guys are a little bit bigger than the other ones. I know back then, most of these guys were determined based on their size. So probably more morphological characteristics than phenotypical. The adult males have a humeral spine, and they have over 28 different species in this genus. In the genus Cotronella, um, first described by Edward Harrison in I think 1951. Yeah, so there. These guys are undergoing current delimitation, which basically means they're making more genera out of it. So this is one of the main groups where they split off these certain species into their own genera because more genetic testing was coming available. And a lot of these genera, actually, I think most of them have been split apart. That's why there's 12 now. There was four back in 2000. So there's just a lot of taxonomic turmoil going on right now in the glass frog community. These guys do not have any humeral spines for the most part. There's probably some species that may have some slight humeral spines, but it's for the most part, most of them have no humeral spines, so no spine on the bicep of the frog almost. I don't know if that's what you call their muscle, but and this is made up of 15 different species. So for the genus Hylanobacterium, there you go. I don't know how I got it the first time, and not this time. They're found in southern Mexico to Brazil and Argentina. So most honestly throughout Central America and South America, Central America and South America. So it's a pretty broad genus of glass frogs, also undergoing current delimitation. So a lot of taxonomic repercussions going on with this. These guys also have no humeral spines, and these guys are known to have white bones with glass frogs. Some of them may have a white bone, some of them might have a greenish lime green bone. It just depends on the species and genus. These guys, this genus has 35 different species associated with this genera. Niphargus, this is the Mindo glass frog family. These guys are found in the Andes of the Colombia to the Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivian uh, parts of South America. These guys also lack humeral spines, and they have webbing between their outer fingers, which is another characteristic used to differentiate the genera or species um, throughout the range of glass frogs, Centrolenidae. And you can see in the picture they have a webbing between the back feet, which is not present in the previous genera. This is the largest genus with over 43 current species. I'm sure it had more before it was separated out, and there's probably even more genera mixed in with there because there's just not a lot of scientific research going on in some of these countries. So a little bit in the phylogeny. No, Lofen wanted a cool fact, like a phylogenetic tree. So I also have two, and this one I know it's kind of hard to read, and there's a lot of species. I think this is all of these species that it has. There's over 150 different species, I think, in Centrolenidae. So there's a lot of glass frog species. This is an exceptionally diverse group of neotropical anurans. Glass frogs, like I said before, have what they have three derived traits. I said humeral spines, and then they have they have the hand webbing between their back fingers. So, and then they have the white bulbous liver, which it's kind of like so the liver, it's a little bit of white over it. It's not that big of a characteristic, but these are the three derived traits. So, depending on the genera or the genus, we'll have a different combination of these traits. So, one genus might have humeral spines and reduced hand webbing on the back toes, and some species might have just the white bulbous liver. It just depends on the genus. And there's over 12 now. I'm not gonna name all of them because there's a lot. I do not know how to pronounce half of these. Different species in general have different combinations of these traits. So there's a lot of turmoil. Before there was four, and after this scientific paper, you know what? This guy pops up a lot throughout this research. He's the loafin of the glass frog world. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his last name, to be honest. So I'm gonna just call him G. G et al. 2009. He's kind of like the first guy to do genetic testing on glass frogs, and this is one of the first phylogenetic trees, 2009, on these glass frogs, and it kind of shows that there's a lot more than just four genera. So out of this paper, he was able to come up with, was it five more genera, and then even more after that. The first being Chimerella. These guys are found in Amazonian slopes of the Andes in Ecuador and Peru. Next being Esperdarana, found in Central America, most of Central America, so Mexico and Costa Rica, and then northern South America and then Colombia and Venezuela. Rulirana is found in Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Colombia. Uh, Sacatimia, which is found in Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. A lot of these genera have very broad ranges, not very well defined, probably because it's really hard to do research down in the neotropical area in like Central America and northern South America. And then we have Sachat Amia and Invitiorina. Um, I'm done trying to pronounce some of these scientific names. The Sach is found in Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, and then Vitorana is Brazil, Argentina, and a little bit into the Amazonian rainforest of Colombia and Ecuador. And you can see on the right, there we go, move it over. Um, Very diverse phylogenetic tree. There are over five, I think there is five distinct clades that he has found in this paper. He listed in this paper. He's listed as A, B, C, D, and E. I don't know why D is down there, not in order, but whatever. So five distinct clades, broken up into 12 different genera, which he lists in the previous paper here. I should say previous paper. It's 2020 paper, so a more modern paper by him listing off these 12 genera uh, with the phylogenetic tree. I just wanted to emphasize that there's trouble taxonomy with these guys, and after G made his paper in 2009, there's lots of taxonomic revisions, kind of making new different genera and stuff. I don't know why I can keep clicking. Okay, okay. So where are these glass frogs found? Much throughout Central America, as you can see. We have southern Mexico, down to Costa Rica, Panama. There's a Panama Canal, and then this is Colombia. I think Peru's around here somewhere. I'm not too well versed in the South American countries. There's Venezuela, and then Western Brazil and Southeast Brazil. That's where it's glass frog, Centrolenidae, is found only in those countries. I should say countries, but only in Central America and South America. So where exactly is the Mindo glass frog and Nymphaeus balanotus found? It is found in um I don't know what country that is actually. I don't think that's Colombia, is it? I think it is Colombia. So found in Colombia near the coast. A little bit into Ecuador. I think a little bit northern Ecuador. The range is really studied that much. I think they found it in 12 different sites in this patch of rainforest. So not a lot of research on these guys. It's kind of why I focus more on the glass frog characteristics and stuff throughout this presentation. But just to point out where exactly they're found, um, south, I think it's southwest, Colombia is probably a good point. In the mountains, the high montane rainforests. So what do glass frogs eat? The quick answer to that is nobody's really done a study on what these frogs eat, but it is suspected that they eat small insects, like spiders, crickets, moths. In human care, I know some zoos have some glass frogs. They feed them crickets. So basically, like any insects that they would feed off to any of their other frogs that their glass frogs eat. So glass frogs basically eat anything that can fit in their mouths, but they're pretty small frogs, so they can't fit too many things in the mouths. And when I looked up a picture of a glass frog eating, nothing popped up. I probably looked for 20 minutes, not a single picture of a glass frog eating something. A lot of pictures of a glass frog being eaten by spiders, which could be well, it is one of the predators, but nothing on them actually eating something, which is crazy. So it is suspected that they eat these small insects, and yeah, not much is known about their specific diets, especially on a niche species of the Mindo glass frog, because these guys are very shy. Um, they evolved to blend in with the leaves, so they basically sit on a leaf. The reason why they're translucent is because you can't really see them through the underside. They don't really have like a shadow because this they have a translucent underside, and then the top blends in with the leaf pretty well. And then they have these spots to blend in with their eggs because the males will sit with their eggs, so they provide a little bit of parental care, which I talk about in a bit. So the reproduction first starts with a male sitting on a leaf, and they will call out to any females in the area. They all have their own unique calls. It's one of the methods that they use to speciate these animals is their exact call. There's a lot of research onto the calls that the males will make sit on leaves. Usually they will sit on leaves that overhang a stream because when the females come, they kind of just mate on the spot. You can see the top picture. And then the female will lay these eggs either on the bottom of the leaf or the top of the leaf, depending on the species. And these eggs will overhang uh, running water. This is the crucial point in their life history where, because these animals lay their eggs on leaves overhanging running water, not just into the running water, they most likely have a better survival rate. And these guys are typically K-selected. Um, I don't know how long they live. I don't think there's a lot of studies done on how long the longevity of these species, but for the most part, they have very few eggs, so a low fecundity, and they provide parental care, which are both characteristics of a case-selected species. So the males will typically the males, sometimes the females will guard or just sit on the eggs, and because for the most part, when they're adults, they don't really have to worry about too many predators as they are evolved to be cryptic species, so they blend in with their environment very well, very hard to spot. Um, but when there are eggs, obviously eggs are more vulnerable to attack. And I know there's some parasitic flies that will lay their larvae into the eggs, and then those larvae will eat the yolk and the embryos of these frogs and then hatch out of it. Kind of like you see with other parasitic wasps. Um, so the males can actually kick away these flies. Sometimes wasps will come up and just suck up all the yolk and stuff from the eggs, and so the males will stand guard and kick away any would-be predators. So, what kind of habitat do these frogs utilize? Typically, like I said, they're found near streams. Not really like deep into the forest. They really rely on these rainforests and constant running water below them to survive and use their reproductive just to reproduce. So typically they're found on leaves overhanging a stream. The perch heights range from 1 to 5 meters. Um, I only live in the US, so I don't even know how far 5 meters is in feet, to be honest. And then usually these guys are restricted to streams within old growth forests, which I will talk about later in the conservation and the threat side of these frogs, where it's not a lot of old growth forests in South America, you'd think. I mean, there's some in like obviously the Amazon, but in recent years, people have been mowing down the rainforest to build agricultural lands. I talk a little bit about Costa Rica and how they are built on this palm oil and these coconut, no, not coconut, the coffee beans, the coffee trees. So they mow down patches of forest to build um, these plantations almost, where they just only grow that one crop. So they're only restricted to streams with very developed rainforest systems. And honestly, for the most part, with a lot of these species, the habitat utilizations are like the what micro habitats they use every day or throughout the day. It's not very well studied because they're very hard to find, especially when they're not calling, especially when it's not raining. So these guys, very hard to find because they're adapted. They've evolved to be very hard to find. So the overall research on their natural history is very understudied, very well understudied. So what environmental threats are there to glass frogs? Like most other amphibians, they have to worry about habitat destruction. Habitat destruction is the biggest impact on, I think, every animal on Earth, uh, as because it's the big human impact. We like to utilize resources. We like to build stuff. We like to build infrastructure. And this also includes habitat fragmentation. So us building roads to connect cities together, us building roads to go gather more resources. These can separate populations. I know we just took a giant test on metapopulations and habitat fragmentation and its impact they can have on metapopulations. So I'm not going to talk too much into it, but all of us know the impact that habitat destruction could have on amphibians. As you see on the picture to the right, this is Ecuador. Okay, just Ecuador, which houses a lot of glass frogs. You see, when I talked about the many genera, a lot of them can be found in Ecuador, and Ecuador has a huge percentage of its land impacted by human activities, or roads, separate populations. Mining industry pollutes the environment around it, and with amphibians, they're very susceptible to pollution. Very high dense populations throughout the entire country. So just a vast amount of land use and presence of humans, which can impact the old growth forests where glass frogs really need to utilize to survive. The illegal pet trade is another major issue. Sure, I'm still talking. Okay. Um, the legal pet trade is another major issue. So people go out and collect these amphibians, a lot of glass frogs, because glass frogs, like I said, are cool. They're really cool animals to keep. So they could be a very lucrative business where people go out and catch a lot of these guys and then sell them somewhere else. So the pet trade is a very big issue for amphibians throughout Central America and South America. And then disease throughout recent years, since the 90s, have been an emerging threat to the amphibian populations in much of Central America and South America. And I'll talk a little bit about that, I think next. I'm gonna talk about that next. So Diseases like um chytrid mycosis, chytrid mycosis, something like that. And then I'm not even gonna list this whole thing, but BD, we call it for short. And this is a disease, or I think it's a fungal disease, and has very big impact on amphibian populations, as amphibians um rely on the skin, so they absorb a lot through the skin. So if something covers that, they can't breathe. I think most of them breathe through the skin, and so it's just very bad disease for amphibians. And on the graph on the left shows the declines in amphibian populations throughout Central and into Costa Rica and the Panama region there. So throughout Central America, and this shows um, the year on the x-axis, and the y-axis shows the longitude. So going to the right, um, and it basically shows the decline of amphibians throughout the years have been slowly following throughout Central America down from Mexico to Costa Rica and Panama. And then on the right graph, it shows that there is a positive correlation between the spread of this BD, or these bacterial disease or the fungal diseases from Central America to South America. There's a positive correlation with that, and then amphibian decline is um, correlates with the spread of this fungal disease. So as the fungal disease moved from Central America to South America, so did the amphibian population decline. Happened at the exact same time this spread was recognized. Another um, environmental impact is just the rates of population, agricultural and forest related change. You can see, reading the footnote of this graphic here. And it kind of just shows that through much of Central and South America, there's a very high rate of change related to the environmental impacts that people have had on the environment. And this will make sense in the next graph, which also correlates with the amount of threatened tree species. Like I said, uh, glass frogs are arboreal, so they're counted as tree species. So if these tree species are being threatened at a higher rate throughout Central America and then into northern South America, this correlates with the rate of agricultural forest-related change. So this includes altering the forest, so mowing down the forest to build a um, palm tree plantation for palm oil, or mowing down the forest for the cocoa bean trade. Because I know our cocoa bean could be the coffee bean too, which is a big um, economic uh, use in a lot of these countries, or economic export. So what are we doing about, you know, reversing these changes? Because you can see in this graph on the right, 1940s, we had, this is Costa Rica, by the way, 75% of Costa Rica was covered in forests. So it had 75% of the land had forested coverage, and then just 40 years later, in 1977 or 1983, there was 26%. So it's a very big difference in just 40 years. But Costa Rica is one of the leading countries in habitat restoration and environmental protection. So they kind of got their A game on in the 2000s, where Save the Rainforest campaign was going on. And now in 2010, probably even better in 2020, um, where they have a 52%. So they're on the rise. Instead of going down, they're on the rise since 1987, where they were able to reforest a lot of these deforested areas. And I know personally, going to Costa Rica, I saw that they had a lot of environmental regulations They're very strict on it. And talking to some of the locals and some of the tour guides, that they were trying to purchase back some of the land bought for palm tree use, palm tree oil, and converting it back to rainforests. And they were no longer selling any land for the purpose of growing these plants. So they're very environmentally concerned about their ecosystems and the environment around them, which makes them one of the leading, like, Central American countries for conservation. And then for glass frogs in general across Central and South America, glass frogs are protected by the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, or CITES, um, where it basically makes it, I won't say illegal, but you need permitting to export these animals, which can limit the amount of pet trade going on. So there's actually some enforcement going on with this illegal pet trade to try to stop the inflow of some of these animals out of the country. So emigration. Um, and obviously, further life history studies are going on to see how these animals actually reproduce, what kind of microhabitats they use throughout their daily lives, which can help um, conserve these animals in the future, because not really, I mean, they're very cryptic species, or they're hard to study. So further life history studies are going on to this day. Very charismatic group of frogs. Just to talk a little bit about our fun facts. Like, get the fun portion. We talked about boring conservation stuff. Um, the fun facts of these frogs. First one is, this is just the Mindo glass frog, and these guys, like all glass frogs, they have different shaped irises and sizes. They have a very large variation in what size or shape their iris is. As you can see, there's just four pictures of four very different irises. So their eyes could be completely different depending on the individual. So there's some sort of individuality going on within these species, which I think is pretty cool. You can see, um, I think C's eyes are the best here. Let's be honest. Fun fact number two. Like I said before, males will protect their eggs. And this guy is kicking away a wasp. I think you could probably see a couple nature documentaries. I remember seeing one where wasps would go up to the eggs and then you go up in there and then kick it off, which I thought was pretty cool. And they do the same thing with other males. Say males goes up to another male when it's calling. They kind of like wrap wrap around each other and start fighting each other. It's kind of weird. But kind of cool too. They got very lanky legs. They kind of like sprawl out from a leaf. It gets very awkward when they're all spread out. But most of the time when you see them bunched up, like the guy on the right. And I actually, this is fun fact number three, I went to Costa Rica and I was able to see these frogs in action. On the left is one of the groups of eggs, and it overhangs a stream, which is kind of cool to see when you hear about the stuff in a classroom, but you get to go see in nature. And this is overhang the stream. It was a rainy night, and as you can see, there's a little tadpole in this egg sac. It was really cool to see in person. And on the right is this glass frog, and I think it's the emerald glass frog. Um, and it's just so cool to see him in person and hear him call. Um, Very cool animals. And in Costa Rica, you're not allowed to touch any of the animals. It's one of their, I say, more better rules that they have. And it's, you can just see how much effort they're putting into conserving their environment and how much they care about their environment. And other South American countries should do the same. But, like Venezuela, they have economic crisis going on. So the last thing on their minds is um, preserving the environment, which is the case for a lot of Central and South American countries, um, which is why there's not a lot of research done on these animals, because there's not a lot of funding. Here's just some extra pics from my Costa Rica trip. We had the hourglass tree frog on the left, the yellow and brown, which is cool. And then there's a red-eyed tree frog, kind of boring, kind of. I'd rather see a hourglass tree frog any day. And then a Leptodactylus savagei on the right. This is the smoky jungle frog, you know what it's called. Which is cool to see in person after Lofen told all of his stories about it. And these guys usually sit at the edge of burrows, and they're really hard to catch because the second they see you, they just dart back down in their burrow. Really cool guys. Too afraid to pick it up though, because I don't want to touch my eyes. And I think that's about it. Thank you for watching my presentation on glass frogs. Hope you enjoyed it. How long has this been? 34 minutes. So have a wonderful day. And I gotta figure out how to stop this. Oh, I'm still recording. I stopped sharing. That's what I did. How do you stop? Stop recording. Pause recording. Stop recording.